for you. What a
Yeah,
blast it is to spend this time with you. Thank you
yeah.
so much.
Thank you so much, and it's great to meet you. And I would love to begin our conversation
Yeah.
with 5 years ago. Probably one of the biggest shifting moments of humanity was living through that pandemic. How did
Mm-hmm.
you get through that COVID time period, and how has it changed the way that you approach your life and clients today?
My goodness. Well, I realized the need for deep soul connection, support, community came out of that. I noticed that a lot of my clients, Joe, were jumping ship from mainstream employment, particularly nurses. I mean, understandably,
Yeah.
right? They were under a lot of pressure. The political climate of a lot of hospital and medical facilities was a very, very tough environment for even veteran nurses who had seen a lot. And so, it's very interesting, Joe, because I actually have a background in vocational rehabilitation. And never in a million years did I think, personal kind of emotional trauma work that I was doing with my clients would transition into, helping people in the early stages of business development,
Yeah.
and women, particularly in their 50s and 60s, saying, like, Amy, what's next? How can you help me manifest something more creative? And that became their lifeline. And so our work together, again, what may have brought them through the door was, insomnia. I call it just generically too much behavior, too much wine, too much shopping, too much insular living became, gosh, Amy, I love art, or, here's what I'd really like to do, but how does that translate into, livable wages? And so, gosh, I've had so much fun with my clients from the pandemic. And for me, I realized it was a very, very tough time for most small business owners. For me, I just, I work out of my home, the lower level of my home. Uh, and I just decided, I'm going to keep my doors open,
Yeah.
and whoever ends up here ends up here. And my business exploded. In fact, it pretty much doubled during the pandemic because I didn't take sides, vaccination, no vaccination. I basically allowed my clients to dictate the protocol that they wanted me to follow, mask or no mask. And I just figured, what? This is just going to be a safe space.
Yeah.
And I was going to meet people where they are, and wherever the journey of healing took us, then I was there as a guide and a coach to help people through that.
So let's get into the exact marrow of what you do right now for a living.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put you in front of kids, 12 years old. It's career day,
Uh-huh.
and one of the kids wants to know what you do for a living.
Yeah.
How do you answer the child?
That's great. That's awesome. Well, in the beginning of my journey, Joe, about 10 years ago, I following a near death experience and, you know, chronic illness, I had this spiritual awakening. And Spirit actually gave me a choice. You're going to stay or you're going to go. And I decided then, I had a child who was in my, you know, I was his sole provider and supporter at that point. And I just decided, hey, as sick as I am, as much as my body hurts, I have a soul contract with this little man, and I need to come back. And Spirit said to me, Joe, okay, well, Amy, if we send you back, you're going to live life more intentionally. So little did I know, I had refined my mediumistic abilities, clairaudience, clairvoyance, and Spirit began to speak through me and advised me that I was going to go back to school and I was going to study to be a hypnotist. So pushing forward, Joe, it was crazy. I had never met a hypnotist. I had never seen a hypnotist. I had never in my wildest dream even Googled, what does a hypnotist do? And so I'm going to give, and again, if you're a 12-year-old listening to this, this is going to be a steep climb. But
Yeah.
I will say that my job essentially is to help my clients resolve subconscious conflicts. Okay. And what I mean by that is, there are things that hover beneath the surface of our awareness that are keeping us stuck, right? They can be self-limiting beliefs, self-sabotaging behavior, that wounded inner child that lives inside of all of us that tells us, oh, I'm not going to take that on. It's too hard. Or please, sitting in the classroom, please don't call on me. I'm horrible at math.
Yeah.
don't shine a light on my incompetencies, right? Because we've told ourselves we don't do numbers,
Mm-hmm.
we don't do public speaking, we don't have the courage and the confidence to get up in front of a group. Whatever it is our anxiety triggers are, my job is to help people unpack that. What is the root cause, right? But on top of that, Joe, it's helping people find their truth, their solution, to piece together a formula for their life that resonates best with their personality and their soul.
Yeah. So what was the near death experience like? Was the other side comforting? Was it what we kind of
Mm,
hear? And that I hear that there's this level of comfort. It's just a different
mm.
place.
It is. For me, it was a little bit different, Joe. I've worked with lots of people, clients, or just colleagues who have had near death experiences. A lot of them, right? Somebody has a heart attack, or they're in surgery and they have an unexpected reaction to the anesthesia, or you know the doctors encounter something unexpected medically, and the person flatlines. They're gone for 7 minutes. My experience was pretty unique in that I was at home. I had this mystery illness that later turned out to be autoimmune. But on top of that, I also had a condition called dysautonomia. So my autonomic nervous system would just go haywire. My heart would be beat too quickly or too slowly, and it would cause near syncope. My blood pressure would drop. And so, more trips to the ER, more 911 calls, like going back years than I could even recall. Even observation in the cardiac unit, because until last year, nobody had discovered that I had a major artery that was being compressed, and it was cutting off blood supply to my digestive organs and all that. So this was going back, Joe, over 10 years ago now. I My autoimmune system was in complete crisis. I was going through a lot of personal stress. I was reaching a point in my life where my chronic condition required that I let go of my corporate job. And I literally threw my hands in the air and I said, God, either take me or heal me, but do not leave me this way. And so I was actually at home and I was alone, and I was, sometime between sleep and wake hours, I felt my soul rapidly leave my body. It was a speed I cannot describe. And instead of having the visual cues that a lot of people with near death experiences have, mine was clairaudient and clairsentient. So I heard thoughts or a voice that spoke to me, and I could feel sensations and emotions in my soul. And so the deciding factor of whether to stay or go was spirit giving me a snapshot of the emotional impact that my death would have on my son. So they were able to kind of catapult me into the future to feel and imagine, if you will, what how my death would impact my son in particular and my family. And so it was surreal. What I can tell you is during however long I was clinically gone, I can tell you I felt a peace I cannot easily articulate, the absence of physical pain. And then as soon as that decision was made to come back to the earth plane, it was like science fiction. My soul just dropped right back into my physical body. As quickly as it left, it came back.
Wow.
And I remember sitting up in my bed, turning on the light and thinking, did that just happen? That was surreal. And at that moment, I knew I had, crossed the threshold. No doubt in my mind, spirit was speaking to me, whether it was God or a guide or an angel, I cannot tell you, but that same voice within a week's time came back during my waking hours and told me again I was going back to school. And then a couple days later, which was wild, Joe, because at that point, this wasn't a spontaneous healing, this near-death experience. I still came back in the same miserable body, but now with this, divine inspiration that was feeding me directives or ideas that I didn't even question. Within a few days later, then it came, that same voice came back and said, you're going back to school to be a hypnotist. And that voice, has been with me for the last decade, and has given me so much inspiration in adding to my repertoire of tools as now a spiritual hypnotist. And if we have time, I can tell you the difference between mainstream hypnosis and spiritual hypnosis is that now, I've woven in mediumship healing. Now I use trance healing. I bring through energies from higher realms to help my clients ignite the healer within themselves.
So I'm curious, when you were 12 years old, what was your dream job?
Oh gosh, Joe, I was such an odd duck. And in my childhood, I look back and I just smile. I don't know how I ever survived main, mainstream school and settings. I went to a Catholic school for 9 years. I actually felt a very, very strong connection to the etheric realm. Um, Although I didn't, minus all of the dogma, actually, the Catholic school environment for me was such a beautiful spiritual incubator because my teachers, who were mostly nuns, were actually whatever order of nuns they were with, they were the sweetest, sweetest souls. They were kind and loving and thoughtful. But I will say at 12 years old, I was channeling music. I didn't realize it at the time, but we somehow inherited a piano. And even at the age of, 8 or 9 years old, with very little, music theory or instruction, melodies seemed to come through to me. And by the time I was 12, Joe, I was getting entire songs downloaded in the dream state. And I would wake up in the middle of the night or first thing in the morning and plow downstairs into our little piano room that had these glass doors that I could shut and curtains that would absorb the sound so I didn't awaken anybody in my home. And so, for me at 12 years old, I knew I was a fierce humanitarian, while other kids were doing math and science and, I don't know, probably choosing the path of their parents, nursing or, whatever it is, teaching. I wanted to move to Africa and run a orphanage for children and paint with them and sing with them and play and just love on them. So I was kind of an odd duck
Yeah.
at a young age, but I always knew I was going to be working in the healing realm. But I mean, it took me till I was 46 years old. I worked as a rehabilitation counselor. I worked in healthcare public policy. I worked in business startup companies helping disadvantaged populations. And then at 46 years old, when I got very, very sick, I had this spiritual awakening. And here I am, 10-ish years later, working in a healing realm.
So let me ask you this. What gets you up every day to do this work, to help people, to lead them to a better place, and to also take care of your soul and your life? What is that collective energy for you every day?
Oh gosh, Joe, I have to say, I consider the clients that I work with to be extraordinarily gifted healers and light workers in their own right. And let me be clear, Joe. I mean, they're not all, mediums or psychologists or nurses. Um, Gosh, some of the most gifted mediums who wouldn't call themselves mediums, but I understand them as mediums, are engineers, scientists, CPAs. They're, what I can say is they're divinely inspired. The way that they raise a collective frequency through their innovative thinking, the way that they love on their staff or on their clients is otherworldly. And so, that gets me up because to me, I think by the time we reach our 50s, Joe, work should feel like play.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we're rolling up our sleeves and we're helping people, make connections and have aha moments and epiphanies. But essentially, I'm helping people get excited about life again and get unstuck, and release old patterns that are, snuffing out their light or, dampening their gifts. And so I don't know how you cannot be excited about working with that population. And for me, I mean, I have autoimmune disease. Just last year, I was in a trauma hospital for 5 days getting this rare digestive disorder addressed, that caused all kinds of residual challenges. But for me, I mean, Joe, we all have a choice. Do we go to the place of victimhood and trauma, or do we handle everything that comes to us like a mad scientist with an insatiable curiosity for solving something, that hasn't yet been solved? And
Yeah.
that's been my approach.
So, with everything that you've accomplished, evolved to, and become in your life, what are you ultimately the proudest of or the happiest about?
Oh gosh, the last 48 hours. I mean, the timing of this podcast is so exciting because, about maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, another medium reached out to me for some work and, just some otherworldly things. And she said, I don't know what it is about you. I feel like I've known you. I'm really comfortable with you. So she came in, we did some work, and she said, Amy, this is absolutely crazy, but I know you and I are going to work together. And I just loved this lady. She really did feel like, we've definitely been sisters in a past life. So you probably can't see very well. That's She walked up my driveway with this artwork.
Yeah.
Okay. So Joe, just yesterday she came back into my space, and I'm bringing through some messages from spirit, and it came to me. The two, she happens to be a medium and a broker. She happens to be a person I consider to be a creative genius. And after she left my space the first time, on a whim, Joe, I started taking some courses in appraising artwork. And then I started binge watching people who repurpose vintage art. And I looked at her and I said, I know what it is. We're going to start an interior design company. And her face lit up, and we were just like laughing. And I mean, it's crazy because she already had this vision. And then, yes, or this morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, well, last night I came up with the name, Two Mediums by Design. And this morning at 4 a.m., I started to design our logo. So I'm most excited about getting this side jam together with Christy. And then the other piece of it, Joe, is I'm really excited in 2026 to bring my new corporate program into the marketplace, where corporations can hire me to work with C-suite employees on mindset things to enhance their performance, to even improve their personal lives, and to really, again, put the fire back in their belly for the leadership that they provide to top tier companies.
That's wonderful. So let me ask you this. At the end of the day, everyone has a
Mhm.
perception of you. Family, friends, clients, business colleagues, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of
Mhm.
you? Who do you think you are?
Mm. Spiritual creative incubator. I
I love it.
just, I want people to be able to, listen to the wisdom that lives inside of themselves, right? To have conversations with their soul and their higher mind, and to use that to lead, to make important decisions in their life. I want people to get out of their head
Yeah,
and start listening to the wisdom in their spirit and in their soul.
I love it. So let me ask you this. If you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one event in human history with your own eyes, where would you love to go to see? It wouldn't create a tear in time, it would just be witnessing it.
Oh my gosh, Joe, I'm a physical medium. I'm absolutely bowled over at the elegance of seances that were held in the UK in the late 1800s. In
Yeah,
fact, I have a physical mediumship group here, a sitting circle, and I've gone great lengths to recreate this sitting circle using, you know, mediumship tools and YouTubing things and reading books. I have very, very thick books written by mediums from long ago. So I would say it would be, I've certainly been in some, participated in some incredible seances, and I've certainly, I mean, one of my side jams is going into homes and clearing energies. And I just think it would be lovely to be able to see some of the greatest physical mediums in time uh, hold these sitting circles and see what kind of incredible spiritual energies they've been able to manifest in physical form.
I love it. So let me ask you this, the most important thing. If anyone has questions, they want to hire you, they want to reach out, any of the good business, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, so for now, no, I've got two other companies that
Yeah.
are going to come into fruition in 2026, maybe even later this year. But for now, sensoriumhypnosis.com
Okay.
is a great place to find, I just wrote a book back in August, Whispers Beyond the Veil, Channel Teachings
Yes,
Inspired by the
exactly.
Spirit World. So they can go to my website, and that will connect them to all my social media outlets, including YouTube, where I share a lot of interesting stories.
Yes. And this has been wonderful, full of great stories. Thank you so much, Amy, for your time. Thank you for your energy. I loved it. This has been absolutely wonderful.
Oh, Joe, I appreciate you so much, and I love your work. Huge fan, and thank you so much for having me today.
It's been an honor, and I will.